friends, and welcome to another judicial episode of Straight Chilling, the weekly horror movie review show where you chill and we kill, slice, dice, and chop up yet another horror movie. My name is Bob. I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode 432, recorded Sunday, July 16th, 2023. Tonight we're talking about another Patreon pick. This was chosen by the one, the only Carmen D. The movie is Nothing But Trouble from 1991. Before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show. First up, calling in from Washington, D.C., we got your boy Randy. Z, what's up, man?
Hello, gentlemen.
How do, Bob? How we holding up?
I'm holding up very, very well. I'm excited to talk about this week's flick. It's a weird one.
Oh, I know you are. This one has been a long time mentioned by you as being a favorite, if I'm not mistaken.
It's true. Are you ready to get weird with me? Do you want to get weird?
I don't think we have much choice with this movie or this podcast. It's kind of built into both. So let's get weird.
Fantastic. Last but not least, calling in from Seoul, South Korea, we got your boy Soju. What's up, man?
Oh, what up? It's your boy Bone Stripper Stains. Ready to strip them bones.
God,
Whoa.
yeah.
A little
It
double
sounds
entendre there.
So violent
Oh
and
my God.
sexual, and I like it.
You know, under sexual
Oh my
undertones there.
Under sexual overtones.
Whoa.
Under
give me those
sexual
tones.
overtones.
Just all
I
the
like it.
tones.
I like it undertone, but over sexual.
Will we ever start an episode respectfully? I think
No.
not.
We're
Never.
going to show respect for ourselves? That's never going to happen.
For the
Certainly not.
craft.
Certainly not. I'm not starting now. I'm not
Oof.
starting now.
I'm tired of this, Grandpa.
Well, that's too damn bad.
That is too damn bad. The Podcraft. Show some respect for the Podcraft.
Just because you make a portmanteau doesn't mean it's important.
Whoa. My mind just got blown. Yeah, shouts outs to Carmen. Thanks for picking this week's flick. Before we get into it, let's tackle a little bit of housekeeping real quick. We do have our August poll currently posted on our Patreon website. If you support us at the $5 level or above, you get the chance to vote on a movie we're talking about this August. The theme for August is robot murder, and the three movies to vote between are The Terminator, RoboCop, and Prometheus.
Whoa, Bob. What them numbers looking like?
What numbers look like?
What do numbers appear to be?
Prometheus is chilling at like a solid 60%, and the other two are pretty much
60.
split. Yeah.
That's
Well,
so
that's less than it
wild.
was, isn't it? That's a
No.
broader
Yeah.
split than it has
Oh.
been.
I think it's a little less, not much.
When
don't
I
know.
read the
Okay.
numbers, it was around 60%.
It's
All
dominating,
right. Well, damn.
Yeah, that's
Which is-
so wild.
blowing my mind. Because the Terminator, RoboCop are like all-time classics,
Yeah.
flat out.
I mean,
And
People don't want
I've never wanted to play as the Prometheus robots in Mortal Kombat, so I don't know what people are voting for here exactly.
right. I mean, they're all good movies, I think, but like all-time classics are just getting their dicks kicked in by Prometheus. I don't know. I don't know what to
The
think.
fans
Oh.
are spoiling your plans, Bob. You thought you had it
Man,
all set
I-
up, didn't you?
I had it dialed in, and then I got fucking ruined by the listeners.
Mhm.
Dude, the listeners fuck us every time.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, no. I'm psyched to talk about any of it. I'm
True.
just
Yeah.
sad that none of them are Mortal Kombat characters.
Honestly,
to talk
it's
about.
like we've been
I don't
working
know.
through.
Is the Xenomorph ever been in Mortal Kombat?
The Xenomorph might have been actually. It's very
Yeah,
possible.
that
It's definitely
seems
an
like it
A
could have
fighting
been.
game. You're probably
Yeah.
right,
Okay.
but not
Like
the
X-
But the Xenomorph's not a robot.
I'm doing my best here.
It's
I know,
true, it's
you're-
not.
You're
Was it
trying to
in
meet
X-
Mortal Kombat
Mor-
more than halfway.
Mortal Kombat X had like Leatherface and shit.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
they've had a decent amount.
Yeah.
Yeah, Terminator
Dude,
was
yeah.
definitely in one.
Mortal Kombat as a franchise has gotten to the point where it might as well be like Madden 2023 and shit, where it's like
It's just
the most
football.
indistinct differences. It's like
Yeah.
now all the differences are relegated to DLC and shit. Like I don't know, man. What's the point?
Every game is just football, but you're also a predator or a xenomorph or whatever.
Dude,
the
that
fuck
sounds
it
fucking
is.
rad. I want to play that.
It
Mortal
does sound
Kombat,
like fun.
Mortal Kombat League football. I would play that shit.
Yeah,
Man.
Play it like play
Triple
Blitz
X.
2000.
there you go.
Yeah. Yeah,
games, man.
we'll have a Patreon tier for that coming down.
We'll
real
develop it.
Let's start.
We'll
Yeah, we're
develop-
gonna make promises about developing
Let's build
licensed
video games.
properties. Let's do that.
We can afford it.
Fraud isn't a thing, right?
Yeah. No, I don't think so. Not anymore. Yeah, get your votes in before the end of the month. We'll see what we're talking about this August. In other Patreon news, we're dropping mini casts every other week, as we have been doing for the past few years. We got over 100 mini casts on Patreon. Last week, we dropped, this coming Friday, we're going to be dropping a new minicast. I'm talking about Candyland this Friday, which is on VOD everywhere. I think I rented it for like $2 or $3. It's super affordable. Came out this January. It's a weird take on a slasher flick. I enjoyed it quite a bit, actually. I recommend checking it out if you're into slashers. I think you'll definitely enjoy it.
Cool.
Yeah. And then after that, we got Wrath of Becky. I did a minicast on Wrath of Becky, so that's coming out
That
soon.
sounds
as well.
like a fucking Twitter handle cataloging public freakouts or something. That doesn't sound like a movie to me.
Yeah, it kind of does, doesn't it? That's not what it is at all.
It's a sequel, right?
It's a sequel. Yeah.
is a
Did you guys see
sequel.
the movie Becky from like 2018
No,
or
and-
something like that?
I didn't. It's with Kevin James, yeah.
Kevin James. Yeah. So
Right.
the original movie Becky is about this family. They've got a young daughter, and they go to a cabin for vacation, like in the woods. And there's this neo-Nazi group that's led by Kevin James, who's like full-on skinhead Nazi badass motherfucker in a role that you would never expect Kevin James to be in. They roll up to the
I love
cabin.
that for him.
Yeah, he kills it too, by the way. They roll up to the cabin and they're trying to retrieve a thing that he hid there, and the family gets in the way, and Becky goes nuts and just starts murdering Nazis.
I think you
And
talked about this before.
I have, yeah. I've seen it a couple times, and yeah, the sequel is basically the same thing. It's a little less neo-Nazi and a little more like Proud Boy, but it's very much the same
Oh.
vibe, and it's
Wow.
very cathartic. So, yay.
Cool.
Well, boy, that should be a spoiler.
Yay! Check those out, yeah.
Somebody
shitload
gets
of
kicked in the
minicasts.
truck nuts.
Hell yeah.
Truck nuts.
Not the truck nuts guy. Minicast over on Patreon, over 100. Check them out. Also, speaking of Patreon news, we got a brand new Patreon supporter. We got to give
Oh, shit.
mad shouts outs to our friend Kyle S. Thank you so much for signing up on Patreon and showing us some love. Every dollar you guys contribute goes right back into the show. And as is tradition around these here parts, we owe you the straight showing salute. This goes out to Kyle S.
Slap my ass.
Been slapping a lot of ass these days. Thank you.
I know.
Thank
We
you,
have.
Hurt and
everyone.
red we are.
I think
Thank
that's
you.
like our second Kyle this month, if I remember correctly.
We
We're
got
bringing
all
in
the Kyles.
Kyle.
Yeah.
We
all
got the Kyle vote. We got it cornered.
We got it. Cornered the Kyle market. Yeah, that's all for Patreon. Juice, you got some news?
Oh, I got some things going on. First up, most importantly, we have a live event coming up here in Seoul, coming up this weekend. So if you are in the Seoul area or in Korea, come see me. We will be at the DCC Cafe, formerly the Dice Latte, which is a comic book and board game cafe here in Seoul, and we are going to be screening some films, some horror films, with our buddy Sean from the Dark Side of Seoul. We're co-hosting, and we're going to be showing a couple films. This is called Summer Chills, which is a tradition here in Korea to show like big blockbuster horror movies in the heat of summer, because everybody kind of likes to go to the theaters and cool down and whatnot. So yeah, we're going to be showing Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Whispering Corridors and maybe some horror shorts if there's time. Just hanging out. We'll be doing like a little kind of like little games or introductions to the movies, like little trivias and stuff like that. I'm gonna see if I can cook up maybe some drinking games or stuff, at least for Texas Chainsaw, something about Franklin saying some crazy shit or whatever. So we yeah, we can throw back some drinks. We're gonna have some food specials and some raffles, some giveaways and stuff like that. So could just come hang out, play some games with us beforehand, and yeah, just have a spooky good time here in Seoul. So we got that. Also last week we dropped a new kind of bonus episode where I was speaking with a local director from Florida, but I was speaking with him in Korea at the BFON Festival, and that was Franklin Rich, who has a new film coming that came out last year, but it's still kind of going through its festival runs. It's called The Artifice Girl, and it's really solid, and I had a fun chat with him that's up on our main feed right now. It's just called Interview with Franklin Rich, I believe.
Yeah. If I could wax your
Creative.
car for a second, that was a
wax my
really
car.
it was a great interview, man. I think you had some really nice questions.
That's a
And,
Jacksonvileism.
it's not. It's really not. But I loved the interview. I thought it was really great. And if you guys haven't watched The Artifice Girl, make sure you check it out and show Franklin some love. You can rent it anywhere you rent movies digitally. So yeah, show him some love.
Yeah.
Hell
And
yeah.
then probably this week, maybe around like Friday, same time, we'll probably have our wrap up for BFON, which will cover like quite a bit of films. We did one with Chattanooga, Overlook, and so this one will be coming out. And if you're interested in, I think there's at least like 5 or 6 titles on there that I would say like keep an eye out for later this year. That's probably going to be like bigger horror releases. So if you're curious about like some things that could be coming out and just like our like kind of first impression opinions on them, keep an eye out for that, or just how the festival went this year in Korea. We'll be talking about all that stuff soon.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's all my housekeeping.
Okay. Last thing I'll say is thanks to everybody that hung out this past Friday for our Joe Bob watch party. Shudder was having some major technical difficulties.
Oh, no.
I just never got the stream to work on my Fire Stick or on my laptop. It seems like some people did eventually get it to work. But thanks for hanging out this Friday. This coming Friday is going to be the season finale. We're going to be doing another watch party. It'll be the last one. Probably until October. He usually does like a Halloween special.
Which
so
is not too far away.
Not too far away. Right around the corner, yeah. So if you do want to hang out with us, watch some Joe Bob, we're going to do a watch party this Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern, and we'll drop a link on all of our socials to join the watch party just before showtime. So come hang out with us. Yeah.
Right on.
What did he show last week when they had trouble? Do you know what he was showing?
Yeah, the first movie was Alligator, and the second was Grizzly 2.
Wow.
Grizzly Deuce. I have one of those every morning.
Yeah.
God damn.
Well, all right. Doesn't sound like you missed out on too much. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alligator's great. I haven't seen Grizzly 2.
I haven't seen Grizzly 2 either. I think Grizzly 2 is one of those movies that they shot half of in the 70s or something and finished like
Oh, really?
2 years ago. Like I haven't seen it though. I haven't seen it. So
fascinating that shit.
Yeah.
all right.
Check it out.
So,
Randy, you've got some housekeeping.
I do. I was waiting for a prompt. Okay.
Sorry, go for it.
It's all good. No. So I do have some housekeeping in that form of guest spots that I've performed in recently. Most recently have been released was a covering of The Mist on the Light and Shadow podcast with our good friend Nicole. We got into it talking about Miss Carmody and all the twisted happenings that happen within The Mist. We had a really good talk. I thought it was a lot of fun, and had to face down some harrowing questions about that film.
Yeah, that was a good discussion. It really made me want to watch The Mist. I haven't yet,
great. I'm dying to see it in black and white, but as far as I know, you can only really catch it on a the DVD or Blu-ray release.
Blu-ray,
right?
yeah, Blu-ray.
Well, that's one for the blues, huh?
I know. Put one in the blue column.
Hang on, Randy. Let me see if I can find it for you. You know me.
Please, you go for it. If you can find it, please do.
I'm sure I can.
on Blu-ray, of course, where we can purchase it
Well,
And
legally. of course.
legally
For
through
a
legal
full
Find
means,
it
price.
for you
as all should.
through legal means.
Yes, so there's that, and also, and I'm not entirely sure when this is going to drop, but I did have a amazingly fun discussion about one of my favorite older horror movies, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. Myself and Caitlin at the Plug It Up podcast, we had a little roundtable between the two of us about that one, and yeah, that should be coming soon. I'm not entirely sure when. I'm sure she's gonna let me know when it drops exactly, but it's forthcoming. Keep an eye out. Plug it up.
Nice.
Plug it up.
Randy,
Wow.
you've been doing the guest spots like a motherfucker.
Yeah.
People
Making
can't
your
have
rounds.
enough
Hollywood
of the Randu.
Randy.
I know, dude. We've done a lot of guest spots this year, but you've definitely done far more than I think Juice and I combined. But yeah, you're making the rounds, man. Keep it
Well,
up.
you know, I got to do something, so I have to contribute in some way. That one mini cast a month goal I set for myself was immediately tanked this year.
Didn't
So
work out.
Oh, speaking of, I mean, contributing, we mentioned this last week, but we still have a like ton of new articles coming out on our website
yeah.
covering
Yeah.
all of these.
we
film
all pitched
festival
in some
films.
articles.
Yeah, and they're
for-
all spoiler free too. We don't necessarily
Mhm.
say that like when we post them on Instagram, but they are all spoiler free. So if you
Yeah, we should
Yeah.
start pointing that out.
if
Yeah.
you want to check out some of these newer films and our thoughts, you can do that on our website, straightchillingpodcast.com.
Yeah, the majority
And
of them
for-
don't have wide release dates yet. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's kind of important not to spoil them out the gate. But
Sure. Yeah, but some of
Yeah.
them, like I think one that you did, Bob, just dropped on Shudder. This past Friday.
Screenbox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Screenbox. Okay, yeah.
We Might Hurt Each Other is the name of the movie.
Mhm.
And it's a slasher joint. Check it out. I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good. If you got Screenbox, it's worth your time for sure.
Right on. And for booking inquiries for Randu, please reach out to straightchillingpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you.
Only for Randy. You can't reach me or Bob there.
No,
I'm gonna get a cameo soon, so we don't have to bother with that.
I'm unreachable. I'm unreachable.
We need a boast.
Pop is the JD
I need
Salinger of this podcast.
We need an all-star a cameo, and that'll be the competition.
Dude,
it's just like who's raising them.
They need like a fucking blood sample to set up a cameo. Like they take
What?
that shit seriously.
Oh,
It's
really?
fucking nuts.
Do they
Are
really?
you
Do they really take a blood sample?
Juice?
Are you? No, it's not. I looked at it briefly because that would be really funny if we set one up and it was just more than I wanted to deal with for a joke. And I was like, fuck it.
Yeah.
Is
Funny
your
though.
eagle name Soju?
If you want us to say some shit, just like send us a message and then we'll work it out without
We usually
cameo.
say shit that people send us already for nothing.
It's true.
so-
It's true. It's
We
true.
charge a small fee of $500, so
This
very affordable.
very
Ongoing.
minute fee of 10 grand. So our house is definitely clean. Let's get in the main event. We're talking about Nothing But Trouble, and we're kicking it off with the back of the box.
What's on the back of the box?
Bob, I see you have this box.
I have it.
Nice.
have it
What's
right
on
here.
that box? Good stuff.
Some faces and some names and a title.
What's on that?
Some actual
information.
text on the back.
Some
There's some
textual
plastic wrap on here, and there's some
information.
paper.
This movie was kind of hard to come by until Shout put it out. I want to say 2 years ago. Shout Select put this out, and I was really excited when they did because I love this movie. It's one that I saw like a million times as a kid. But it's Nothing But Trouble from 1991, rated PG-13, runtime of an hour and 34 minutes. I don't think this was on DVD. It was definitely on VHS. So I think it skipped DVD and went to Blu-ray. It's not on 4K. But yeah, watch it. Treat yourself. This is the only movie ever to be directed by Dan Aykroyd. It was written by Dan and Peter Aykroyd, based on some true life events as well. Stars Chevy Chase, Dan Aykroyd ×2, John Candy ×2, Demi Moore, a bunch of other folks. Plot synopsis brought to you by the back of the box is as follows. Take a road trip into the twisted mind of Dan Aykroyd with a uniquely unusual Nothing But Trouble, when cocksure stock market master Chris Thorne volunteers to drive lawyer Diane Lightson to Atlantic City. He's got more than sightseeing on his mind. One wrong turn and one traffic violation later, they find themselves in the collapsing village of Valkenvania and nabbed by the local constable. But their trouble really begins when they come nose to nose with the town's bizarre and unstable justice of the peace, Alvin Valkenheiser. Directed and written by Aykroyd, who also plays a dual role along with Candy. Nothing But Trouble is a comic nightmare unlike anything you've ever seen. Put out that dog rocket, have a hot dog, and enjoy your stay in Valkenvania, because once you're there, you'll never escape.
It's got the worst hot dog you'll ever see in it.
It does. That's true.
So that was a weird sign off for that copy.
Yeah, it was really weird. It was super weird. Yeah.
Clearly crafted by a fan.
Yeah. Gentlemen, have you seen this movie before, and would you recommend people check it out? Rand Deasy, kick us off.
Yeah, I have seen this before. I want to say maybe even twice before. Which is surprising because it's not a movie that I particularly long to go back to. I have a very, very, very tepid recommend for this. To me, this is the epitome of it's on cable on a Sunday afternoon and I'm doing stuff. You could do worse sort of thing. It's not, if you're looking for rip roaring laughs, I don't think this is the one. But there's some good stuff in there too. So it's a very, very tepid recommend for me.
Okay. Juice, what about you?
I had never seen this before. This was not on my radar. And I would not particularly recommend it. This has a very particular flavor and it's very reminiscent of the 90s. It's got all the kind of quirky weirdness that a lot of the 90s shit had. But I think one of the reasons it's hard for me to kind of recommend this movie is this movie has a lot of different kind of lanes that it's driving in, but it never really quite picks one. I don't think it ever really kind of captures the comedy aspect or I guess some of the horror notes that it's going for. It's a pretty solid blend for what it's doing, but it never just like kind of like completely launches in either one. I wouldn't just say, like Randy said, it's not like rip roar and laughs. You know, Chevy Chase is in here and Dan Aykroyd, but it's like not like so funny to me. It's like not so scary. Like it's kind of medium across the board, and then everything kind of starts to blend together where it like none of the flavors feel particularly distinct in that way. So I would say like not particularly recommend unless you're just like super into the kind of feel of 90s era weird kind of movies like this. But so yeah, not really. Bob, how about you? You seem to love this movie. What's going on with that?
Yeah, I do. I have mad nostalgia for this movie. So like take that for what it's worth. I do love this movie. I grew up watching it. I've seen it countless times. I think this movie reminds me a lot of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, but in like a lighter version. So if you're like a big fan of Texas Chainsaw 2, I would heavily recommend this. Outside of that, it's probably a light recommend because it's not super like horrific. So if you're like a big horror hound, I don't know that this is really going to scratch that itch. I think this is funnier than it is like spooky. I don't know, but it's got this weird, kooky 90s like oddball, quirky comedic vibe that like it's of its time, and if you're into that kind of vibe, it just works. I don't know. Like these movies don't exist. Like they don't get made anymore. I don't think, for better or worse. I don't know. I totally understand why somebody would not like this movie, but I'm definitely a fan. So I would recommend it more than I wouldn't. But like I don't know, man.
A light recommend.
Oh, I guess a light recommend. Yeah, it sounds like across the board kind of a light recommend. I don't want to overhype it.
It's a very meh response from me.
Yeah, I'm trying the
nostalgia. We are lukewarm
on this. I'm checking my nostalgia as best as I can.
You are.
So yeah, we'll give it a light recommend, I guess, across the board.
All right.
We're gonna spoil the shit out of this movie, and here comes your warning.
Spoiler warning.
Whoa, Bob, did you type up a plot
Ooh.
synopsis for this bad boy?
You know I did. I got
Ooh,
it.
this is gonna be weird. Go for
Pro-
it.
Professional. All right, here is the plot synopsis. Financial publisher Chris Thorne is throwing a party at his penthouse and runs into Diane Lightson. He agrees to give her a ride to Atlantic City in the morning to meet with a client. Throne's obnoxious yet wealthy Brazilian clients Fausto and Ronaldo also hitch a ride. While on the way, Fausto and Ronaldo insist they take a back road and have a picnic in the countryside. Thorne runs a stop sign, and when the cops attempt to pull him over, he tries to outrun them in his Beamer. He ultimately fails and is forced to appear in court in front of the local justice of the peace in the small town known as Valkenvania. Judge Valkenheiser, who's also the cop's grandfather, finds out Chris works in finance and insists that he is simply just a banker, which of course he hates bankers, and he keeps them hostage in a secret basement room in his house. The four hostages attend a hot dog dinner, find out that the Valkenheiser family fortune was lost in a sour bank deal. The group tries to escape, but the judge's granddaughter stops Chris and Diane. The Brazilians jump out the window and they make a deal with the cop, who ultimately decides to leave Valkenvania with them. Chris and Diane finally manage to escape, but Diane's caught by the judge's infantile grandchildren, Bobo and Lil Devil. The judge catches Chris and says he has to marry his mute granddaughter, Aldana, or he's just going to kill him otherwise. The hip-hop group Digital Underground gets pulled over and hauled into the court for speeding, where the judge asks them to play a song to prove they are indeed musicians. Turns out the judge rips a mean organ and jams with them, takes a ride on one of their songs, ultimately letting them go free because one of their hit singles, same song, is just a banger and no one can deny it. Chris begs the Digital Underground to save him, and the judge retaliates by giving Chris a ride on his murderous roller coaster called Mr. Bone Stripper. Luckily, it breaks down and he escapes and saves Diane from being killed. They both hop a train back to New York City. They inform the authorities of what has happened and return with the cops. Turns out Judge Valkenheiser knows the whole police force, and they turn on Chris and Diane. They manage to escape
Skip the end.
because the underground coal fire causes the entire ground to collapse. Back in New York City, Chris watches the news, and the coal fire is being investigated, and Judge Valkenheiser apparently has not died. He survives, and he says he's going to be visiting his new grandson-in-law very soon in New York City. Chris runs for the hills. Roll credits.
Runs for the hills. He makes a fucking full-scale cartoon imprint of his body through the wall as a not quite Looney Tunes theme song plays.
Oh yeah.
That's how this movie ends.
Satisfying.
So, Bob, something struck me when you were describing your relationship with this movie. You think this movie is funnier than it is scary. I don't think this movie is kind of at all.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I get that it's trying to be funny, but
yes.
I think the thing is, though, even with its datedness, but this is an interesting movie for me to watch where I can kind of see, and like it's now imprinted on my mind, never having seen this before, but the kind of decline or influence of Chevy Chase is kind of how I see this type of movie, where I can see every now and then he gets like some lines where I'm like, okay, that's, you know, what I was expecting for the whole kind of movie. Like there's little pops and moments where I'm like, oh, but it feels like a movie where it's just like, nobody's like really caring about you or the style anymore, and it just doesn't come through anymore. It's not firing on all cylinders.
So really I don't think Chevy Chase is funny in this movie, honestly.
No.
It's all Dan Aykroyd for me as the judge. I think he's hilarious.
See, okay, I think that the judge is kind of fun. Like I think he's kind of fun and like freaky or whatever. Like not. I think there's maybe, I don't know, like 60% of that performance I can get down with, and I'm like, okay, I see what they're doing. It's kind of like he's like this just fucked up villainous character who kind of gets away with everything. He's like a little bit cartoonish. I can get behind all that, but he is clearly the only major comedic actor in this movie who is trying his hardest. I don't think John Candy's putting his best foot forward here, and I definitely don't think that Chevy Chase is. Chevy does not seem like he wants to be, which is crazy because I watched an interview where he was like praising the shit out of this movie and out of Dan as a director and all this stuff. Like it's clear that like he's in it because his buddy wanted him to be in it, but he does not seem interested. He's not a fucking good insert. Like he's not a good character for us to follow as a fish out of water because he just seems kind of like too cool for school, too cool for the movie. Like he's
just kind of rolling with it in a way that like no normal person really would be.
But also, like John, like you said, John Candy, I was so disappointed that essentially he does nothing.
He's underutilized. I don't think he's not. I wouldn't say John Candy's not showing up, but
I don't think it's his fault. But I mean, literally, the character just disappears.
Exactly, you're exactly right. Like,
well, one of his characters disappears, and the other one is mute.
Yes, he strikes a deal with the Brazilians, and he leaves for the rest of the movie. And then Eldana doesn't speak. Yeah, so it's like, what can he do?
Yeah,
I don't know.
That was they had an opportunity with this character of the policeman. They kind of set him up as being like sort of like not down with the judge's hyper ruthless tactics and all this stuff because the judge is a lunatic who's just there to like fuck people over. He's trying to rein the judge in to some degree. He kind of resents working there, and he escapes. He absconds from the entire movie with the Brazilians. And to me, it's like they have this great setup where he could like he clearly helped fucking Chevy Chase get in
Might as well be,
yeah. So, like some of the lines in this are directly from any other Chevy Chase movie. May I do the driving, please? I heard that dropped and I was like, okay, Chevy is not even using lines from this movie anymore.
It does kind of start out exactly like a vacation movie. It doesn't end like one, but yeah, it starts that way.
And so like, I don't know, like they have this like interesting setup where he can be like, he helps them escape or whatever. And they could have done this thing where at the end, like he kind of disappears from the end. We find out later that he kind of fucked them over and took the money from the Brazilians and went off to live in. Like I'm reminded of like the end of Office Space where Milton is on the beach.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It could have been that, but instead it just kind of like you forget about him, and then he's like, "Oh, everything's cool here," and then that's it. Like the two major comedic characters supposedly were just kind of written out along with one of its biggest stars' only speaking role. And then all that's left is the sister character that he plays, whose biggest, like the only joke there is that it's a guy in drag, and he kind of has some like funny-ish mannerisms, but it's not like, it's just because he's kind of
not super funny,
somewhat straight. Like he's playing it as if, you know, it was like he's playing that role. He's just playing that role, and it's not funny in its own right, I don't think.
I think I'll give some love to Aykroyd here for a minute. Like, I think he, as the judge, really is the funniest part of this movie. He's got the nose piece that's clearly like a dick, and I also thought it was like a funny
Does he
sort
sneeze jism?
I don't think so, but
I don't remember.
No, I don't think. No, not in the movie. I'm asking hypothetically. Do you think he sneezes jism?
Well,
I think he might.
It's a prosthetic because like his nose doesn't exist. He takes it. It's not real. But anyway,
natural
it's like
male enhancement is what we call it.
Clearly supposed to look like a dick, which is a joke. I think he's got some of the best lines
the worst
as well.
hot dog you'll ever see in it.
Dude, the scene where he's like loading up his hot dog and eating it at the dinner table, I thought was fucking hilarious. And like the excitement that he has encouraging everybody else to like load up their dogs with the condiments, and like nobody
train.
the condiment train. Yeah.
Can I say like, okay, I'm sorry. Actually, Bob, you finish your thought and I'll come back. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, the dogs are called Dutch Country Herefords, and he's super fucking excited about it. He's also just got like a bunch of like one-liners that I think are really funny. He says, quick as sump grease through a 10-year-old goose, which I thought was a great line. He also, like when he's taking off like his face and his wig and his leg, and you see that he's like this crumbling human being, he looks in the mirror and says, always was a good looking fella. Like he's got some like funny ass lines, I think. I don't know. You're worse than a week worth of yellow shitstorms. I thought was funny. I don't know.
Repulsive.
I think he's showing up in a way that most others aren't. There's some of the other actors that like they arrest, I think, are really funny. Like the Brazilians have a couple like lines that they drop that are really funny. And also there's whenever they end up arresting the Digital Underground for speeding, one of them says like, "This place is all Draculated." I don't know. There's like, I don't know, random lines dropped throughout it, but unfortunately those aren't really dropped from like John Candy or Chevy Chase. Really, it's just like one-liners.
And the thing is, like, I think that those things that you're describing are mostly like, they're not even really they're just kind of like semi-humorous comments. I don't even know. They don't really strike me as being particularly all that clever.
No
It's just
banter. Like, there's nobody to like. Nobody plays off of each other.
They try to. Demi and fucking Chevy kind of try to. They try to make that happen.
For like, okay, if you're like three comedic if you're going to this movie saying like, who you got Chevy Chase, John Candy, Dan Aykroyd, and you're like, okay, we're gonna get some kind of, back and forth, some snappy things going on. No, that they're like, I can't think of any.
It's very
instances.
canned.
Yeah, it's very just like, and to me, it came off as kind of cringe because some of the stuff is quite dated and just comes off as like very silly, very over the top, and some of it is just, it might have been funny for the time or was like acceptable to be funny at the time, but like it's just not. To me, it was, for the first time watching it, having no nostalgia value, I was just like, ooh, this does not age particularly well.
Yeah, there's some weirdness for sure.
I don't think people loved it at the time. Like it kind of flopped pretty hard.
Okay.
It's just kind of it's a weird oddball thing. Randy, you had a point you were about to bring up, but
yeah, this is like a kind of a whole different thought rather than focusing on the comedy, which I just really don't think is there. I think if anything, it's sort of like tinned laughter, tinned jokes that would maybe work with a live studio audience, filling in the laughter gaps, but it just doesn't really work in the context of this grotesque fucking nightmare movie. But that said, the grotesqueries in this movie, the sets, the fucking production design are really fucking cool. That's like my favorite thing about this movie, and that is what keeps me engaged throughout. If at all, it's just like looking at this house, it's just jam-packed with shit. I love the way that it functions like a fucking Rube Goldberg device. Like the walls collapse and shit, and like there's doors that lead to just a room full of bats for no reason. Like shit like that. Like it's kind of like fun in a like sort of like Scooby-Doo sort of way. And I get behind all of that. And I kind of wish the movie had leaned more horror or more comedy, one or the other. The thing is, like, if the jokes were like really landing, some of that stuff would be like heightened maybe. But as it is, it's entirely propped up on the backs of this production value because the comedy just isn't really there, and the story, the horror aspect of the story, doesn't really work for me. It's too undercut by the bad jokes. So I don't know. Like that to me is like the main thing worth praising about this movie is how it looks. You compared it to Texas Chainsaw 2, and I had the same thought. I'm like, this is what it feels like a haunted fucking carnival with a bunch of like kooky fucking characters. But the thing is, like, the characters in that movie are kind of funny. Because I'm not, and maybe it's partially because of what I expect from these actors. Like I expect John Candy to be as hilarious here as he is in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, or I expect Dan Aykroyd to be as funny as he is as Ray Stantz. Like, but none of them really are quite hitting it. Earl Chevy certainly isn't, and so like I don't know, it just kind of leaves it hanging out to dry, and it just kind of sucks because they've got this great stock here.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, go ahead.
Just to speak a little bit more off what Randy was talking about, this was shot by Dean Cundey, who one of the most famous DPs, if not the most famous DP around. Shot Halloween, Jurassic Park, the laundry list of every hit you've ever seen and loved he shot. Also the set designer, I can't remember the person's name, I didn't write it down. I believe is the same set designer that worked on like RoboCop and like several other bangers. So like Dan Aykroyd basically just hired the who's who to work on this movie. And I think it really shows because it is shot wonderfully and the set design is like next fucking level.
Mhm.
And I think maybe he just bit off a little more than he could handle in the fact that he was like writing, directing, playing two roles as well, and also dealing with, I think it's pretty safe to say, a Chevy Chase who did not want to be there and wasn't really
Certainly acted like he
invested.
did.
Yeah. So, like, I don't know, man. That's a lot to handle, especially if you've never directed a movie before. So, like, I kind of give him a little grace on that. But yeah, I think the movie does look good, and like the set design is as such that you can like look in the background and like find layers and layers and layers of shit that maybe you haven't seen before if you did want to watch this more than once. So.
Absolutely.
I was gonna say the same exact thing about, because I don't want to just knock on this movie being a first time
Right.
watch. I wanted to be able to say like the set design is incredible, actually, I would say, and the strongest piece about this, even from when they drive in, the moat and the pieces that are constructed, and then like the pillars of trash and things like that have like a weight to them, like it feels like a real place that you can imagine. And then the roller coaster is great because it's got this, I feel like the set pieces capture more of the feeling of what this movie should be, where it's that mix of danger and kookiness. Oh, you've got this roller coaster. Whoa, that's so wild and kooky. And then it grinds your bones up and spits them out. It's like there's a real danger there. You're dying, people, but it's still kooky and wild. And I wish that the performances and everything else around it kind of match that, because the set pieces are so great. Even having a house where there is this kind of creepy danger going on, where it makes me unsettled to be kept against your will for these stupid things that you just like can't escape out of. But then also you're trying to escape and you fall down a slide, and then the walls start closing in and things like that. It's that good mix of kooky ridiculousness with the danger and unsettlingness built into it. I just like wish everything else lived up to those amazing pieces.
Totally. I honestly think if you just move the one piece of Chevy Chase to somebody who's like invested in this role or is visually invested in this role and is not playing basically Fletch in a cartoon world, like I don't understand like why he's playing it cool as a cucumber, like he's in a whole different kind of movie. But like, look at the set you're in, and of course this is like fucking, this ends with you jumping out of the like through the wall like goddamn Wile E. Coyote. Could you act like it a little bit, please? Like throughout, not just like in a few moments, but like it's okay to have him be more grounded because he's the everyman. But like I look at something like Rocky Horror Picture Show, and I look at Barry Bostwick as Brad, and I think, why, even if somebody doing that, like an overt, like
Over
sunshine, like
yeah.
over the top, like straight guy going into this situation and then just getting like completely pummeled into submission, that's enjoyable to watch. And the set supports that.
Sure.
You just need the acting to support that. I really
Sure.
kind of put most of the blame for what this movie became on Chevy's shoulders, which is crazy because he's like, so much of this is Dan. Like this is all so much like Dan's baby. I don't know. Like I feel like he gave, maybe because they're friends and because it was his first time director or whatever, I don't think that he got out of Chevy what he wanted. I can't imagine that he did. Just looking at what we're seeing, it's so
I don't think so.
incongruous for the
Yeah.
rest of the movie.
To be fair,
Yeah.
though, I don't think, I mean, going off, Bob was praising Dan Aykroyd. I mean, if you're going to pick out when the acting chops are kind of low and the comedy levels are low, especially for what you're expecting from these kind of three actors, then yeah, that's where you're going to go to. But I mean, comparing it to Rocky Horror is a great way to say, like, Dan Aykroyd's in no way in this performance a Tim Curry. You know, even if you had that opposite piece, then I honestly think what would shine more is the kind of cringiness of what Dan Aykroyd's doing, because to me it's not particularly funny. It's okay, but it's so weird that I love the set pieces, but the makeup stuff going on, especially like when we get into things like the twins, and then in some ways of the way Dan Aykroyd looks, it doesn't hit a vibe for me. I kind of get what they're going for, but to me it just comes off as cringe, like them wearing diapers and they're like
Yeah.
look.
I
and
think
I don't
that.
know.
That's fair. That's
That
totally fair.
Dude, what is it? Little Devil and Bubs or whatever?
Too
Like,
Bobo,
hard.
yeah.
dude,
yeah.
that's something that could have been cut from this movie, or just changed to like it went really big, and I give it credit for that, because that's where I feel like that's where I disagree with you. Just like I see that the problem with Dan Aykroyd's character in this is largely a problem with how he is foiled to Chevy Chase. Like, it's just so nonchalant feeling on one side. I don't know. It just doesn't work. Like, the dichotomy is like they're just in two different fucking movies. And I think if you're at least in the same movie, he's not going to be as good as Frankenfurter. That's just like, but that's like impossible. You know what I mean? Like, that's asking a
almost
lot.
unfair. Yeah.
But like, he's giving the same energy effort, and it's clear that he's doing at least that. And cringy or not, whether it lands or not, at least the tones of the actors are matching. And that's all I'm asking for, is just like have characters whose tones feel like they belong in the same world in some way. Even if you have this fish out of water thing, you can still like have like the way they speak, like I don't know, man. It's that to me is just the biggest thing. And I think that if they had somebody that just went a little bigger or dedicate, like, to me, more, as much as I don't think she's all that funny in this, she's clearly trying to be. And I think that like that's where Dan's biggest faults are, is with the script, because even you're responsible for making these actors who are not comedians into comic actors for this movie. The writing isn't doing that. So that's where Dan's culpability is. And I think, to me, is like trying, but she's not a comedic actress really, and she's not doing anything in this besides sort of like I have a hard time even trying to figure out what she's doing, honestly. She's just sort of like stumbling about. She's trying to do pratfalls or whatever, but she's also being a sex pot. I think she's trying to do Madeline Kahn, but it's really not coming off that way.
I think she does a decent job in this movie. So like Dan Aykroyd never wanted to direct this movie. A little bit of trivia,
I didn't
just
know.
like
Okay.
mid show. Like he definitely wrote the script with his brother based on this really like awkward experience they had where they were driving through upstate New York and got pulled over for speeding and then taken to like the justice of the peace's house. And like it was just like an old ass woman in a house, and like, fucking like judged them right there, gave them a $50 speeding ticket, and then proceeded to like have tea with them and chat throughout the evening. And I didn't know that like shit like that ever happened. Like this movie, the setup of this movie to me
New
seems,
Jersey, you gotta be careful in parts of New Jersey.
I don't know. It blew my mind that was like based on a real life experience. But they wrote this movie, tried to like get it made. They showed it to the studio and they were all about it, but they had trouble finding a director, and they showed it to I forget all. There was like 2 or 3 directors that passed on it, didn't want to make it. So Dan Aykroyd was like, just to shore it up and make sure it gets made, I'll go ahead and direct it and like surround myself with an ace team. And I think he did get an ace team, and maybe he just shouldn't have played any parts in it if he was going to direct his first movie. It seems like a lot. But even at the same time, I do think the judge is the best part of this movie still. So like, I don't know. He didn't like really want to direct it, but he did, just to make sure it got made.
Well, let me ask you this, Bob, because maybe this isn't trivia, maybe it isn't, but I seem to recall that this movie was like, it was much more of like an R-rated horror comedy, and then studio insisted that they trim a whole bunch of shit, including a lot of John Candy's work. Is that true?
I do know it was going to be way more horror. I don't remember if the John.
It was
Candy's...
called Vulcanvania at first. I know that.
Yeah.
And they made him change the title to this fucking nothing line.
They wanted it to be PG-13 for sure, and originally it was not going to be. I don't know about the John Candy stuff specifically, but yeah, it was going to be a more of an R-rated movie originally.
I feel like maybe a lot of like, I don't know what's on the cutting room floor. I can only speculate, but like, it just really feels like a lot of the jokes were trimmed out of this, and there's like the cool set pieces and shit like that. But like a lot of whatever passes as humor is like ADR, as like people are sliding down slides and shit, like, and it's mostly like kind of throwaway lines. I don't know. I feel like I just don't feel like the comedy is like working at all in this movie, and it to me, it feels like it needed to push itself in one direction or the other. If it wanted to like be comedy forward, it needed to work on the jokes more, and if it wanted to be horror forward, it's already got like a lot of the good shit that's like horror as a setting, because that was the setting, but it's not taking advantage of that format really. It's not doing anything with it really.
Yeah.
I do want to like briefly praise the like musical interlude because I feel like that's such a thing of the past. It's like so much fun in this movie. And maybe that's my nostalgia talking. I love the fucking like Digital Underground rolling in and playing a song, and like the goofy judge like taking a solo, and the girls start like dancing all over him, and he just looks insane.
Ridiculous.
I love that scene, and it's like such a relic. It's a thing of the past that'll probably never like come back. I don't see that ever happening again, really, because like monoculture is not really a thing anymore. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, how did that hit y'all?
As a first watch, as an adult and everything like that, it didn't do it.
Yeah.
I don't love it. I mean,
Yeah.
I see it as, I think it's quaint in a way that when I say it's of its time, it's like, oh, kind of like you said, that doesn't happen anymore. It's interesting to see. It's interesting to just pull this group in to do that. But from a entertainment perspective, it's awkward. It doesn't make any type of sense. It doesn't fit any, again, like I said, this movie, it's like this grab bag of tones that's just another kind of thing that exists in this film. Like, if you took it as its own little thing, then okay, sure, it's fine. But in this cacophony of kind of bullshit that's going on, it's just another noise, and it's just something else going on.
I think that's apt. Go ahead.
I like the cacophony though. Like I understand why someone would not like it. That makes perfect sense. I don't know.
Like,
I dig it for some reason. And also Tupac, first Tupac movie.
Tupac's and it's like that shit blew my mind. But I don't know. Like, I don't have a huge problem with it in theory. Like, to me, that interlude is like, I think there's movies that do that, and they're like not really so much now because there's just not many like comedy movies in general. So having a little like, but like movies will sometimes have just like one song tossed in, one diegetic song in the process.
Like The Conjuring 2.
Sure. Yes. Oh my God.
I forgot about that shit.
But I don't know. Like, but the fact that it's like the Digital Underground and it's so like incongruous with what else was going on with this movie, I see that as kind of like the fun of it, and I'm okay like doing that sort of thing. The problem is that it doesn't have a strong enough backbone to where that feels like, oh, what a weird little outlier in this movie. It just, it doesn't feel like it's a fun alleyway you're visiting. You're still trying to find your way to the main thoroughfare the whole fucking movie. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it just feels like an alleyway of an alleyway, and you're just like, it doesn't feel like there's a strong enough. It doesn't feel like the movie knows what it wants to be well enough for it to diverge from that and have you have fun in the divergence from that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
I would say too, from the horror aspects, because there's like there are things that actually bother me, trouble me, and I've talked about this before. I really do have this kind of real fear, I guess, or just this it strikes a chord with me when you're in the backwoods of someplace and people are able to make their own kind of rules, and in that way this works. But a kind of thing, a problem I kind of have too with Texas Chainsaw 2, and when I'm looking at things like horror comedies, because I do like horror comedies, but it's weird when everything almost kind of comes down to the judge character, where he's got to be menacing and the main threat, but also the main source of comedic relief. I feel like there needs to be a better balance of there's a threat and maybe some pieces surrounding the threat are more of the comedic relief. If I mean, there's not like a central kind of character, but even if you look at the idea of like Shaun of the Dead, for instance, the threat is there. There's a real threat, and they're able to make jokes out of the threat, out of the situational threat. But the threat itself is never, they'll dance around the zombie while a song's playing and the situation is goofy. The threat is still there, you know? And I think when you have Dan Aykroyd doing everything, it just doesn't kind of work for me. If you're going to do a horror comedy, I want the threat to be threatening and the situations to be making light of that threat, I think.
I don't know. I can see. I don't know. I don't fully. So I don't think you have to do that.
You don't
make it
have to.
successful.
It's just kind of
I think
what
that
works better for me.
I don't think. I think it can be. Yeah, that's fair. But like Scary Movie doesn't have a real threat, and it still makes me chuckle more than this one does. You know what I mean? Like, and it. The thing is, like, you've got Dan Aykroyd being like this big character who's like I feel endeared towards because they're like kind of making him like the funky grandpa situation in some ways, you know, like he's like, oh, I'm doing unexpected things, but like the unexpected things he's doing are largely like not that fucking interesting if taken in a silo. Like you are introduced to him, he comes out and when they finally reveal his face, he yells at them or whatever, and then he goes ha ha ha, and he goes hula boola boola boola, and does all this like weird fucking hula dance shit, and it's like I don't know what this is supposed to be right now. Like this is not just funky grandpa, this is just like nonsense. Like what is happening? Like I don't know what I'm supposed to feel about this guy anymore. I don't know. And you just get that throughout. Like I feel like I never have a strong thread on what that character is really aiming at. He seems like he's changing directions as often as the movie is. And then like, even though that said though, like there's a strong lore in this movie. They have like a lot of like fucking thing like that involves the setting, like the underground fire and his hatred of bankers and all this shit. Like all that stuff could theoretically work, but it's just, I don't know, man. There's something about like the way that he acts around people where it's like, it's cartoonish. And so it's nonsensical. I don't know. It's just, maybe you're right. Maybe it is just like doing too much. I feel like I see what they're going for, and they're like putting him as a goofy grandpa, like gross goofy grandpa right out front, but they're also trying to like make him menacing and all this stuff. So maybe that is part of the issue, because I think there's like a like Frankenfurter, kind of threatening, not totally threatening, you know, but also lots of fun, very manic and ridiculous. Like there's ways to do that. Like fucking the Joker exists, for Christ's sake, like in so many of his forms. It's like mania that's kind of fun to watch and funny and makes jokes, but also like is a real threat. You feel like there's a threat there. I don't think it's impossible. For some reason, this character isn't pulling that off.
Yeah, I do agree that this movie's probably trying to do a little too much. It's spread a little thin. The whole like underground like fires is based loosely on Centralia, Pennsylvania. You guys familiar with that city at all?
No.
So it's a real place where like they had underground mines that there was a fire that got out of control, and it's like been burning for decades. Like the city is shut down. Nobody lives there anymore. And it's, you can like tour it, I think, but like it's Silent Hill is based on Centralia. Like it's
cool.
like underneath the city is just constantly burning, and I guess Aykroyd was like inspired by that because it's fucking nuts, right?
That is nuts.
I listened to it like an NPR show on it, like I don't know, 8 years ago or something, and it blew my mind. I didn't know it existed, but it's been burning for decades. So Centralia, Pennsylvania, if you want to go down like a rabbit hole, research that shit. It's a real place.
Awesome.
But that's why at the end of this movie, like the ground collapses.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for like this particular narrative, but like knowing what it's based on makes it a little more interesting, I guess. But like it seems like out of nowhere, really, at the end of this movie.
Everything seems out of nowhere, though. That's the thing, is like those are all cool elements, but they don't know how they like he doesn't tinker toy them together well enough. They don't really make a whole lot of sense. Like things regularly in this movie happen by happenstance. Like fucking Chevy Chase only survives in this movie because of multiple strokes of insane luck, which might work in like some context, but it just adds to the aimlessness feeling of this movie. So when you have this character in John Candy that's set up and then disappears, and then you've got like everything happening by happenstance, and then even the fucking mine collapsing the house, that's happens for no fucking reason. That just happens. And like, I don't know, man. Like, I understand like parts of this movie wants to be very cartoonish and parts of it wants to like build on real lore, and it's just not really fitting those pieces together.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think the
fair.
cartoon, yeah, the also maybe two things. I want to go two directions. I'll go one direction. Also, too, the beginning of this movie is another thing that really like bothered me on a kind of personal level. We've talked about some of these kind of things before, but I like the Brazilians when they're just like, yeah, where are we, like the way this movie starts, where he's going to the party, there's just a bunch of shit
Dude,
ass
yeah.
people there. They're like, oh yeah, let's go. Where are we going? They just like show up in his car, and I'm like, fuck everyone already that's involved in this movie. I already hate everyone and
Yeah.
find them obnoxious to the fucking
Yes.
nth degree, to where I'm like, if anything, I want to see these people killed in the most ridiculous ways. And for the Brazilians to just escape and disappear, especially taking John Candy with them, where I'm kind of like standing there going like, is that all we're gonna get?
You can write them out of the movie.
Yeah, it
matter.
just leaves this sour taste where I'm like, I had to deal with their bullshit, and I'm not even gonna get to see them fucking flayed or skinned, like nothing cool is gonna
that's
come
true,
out of
man.
it. That fucking sucks.
That does suck. And like it really does feel like this movie is built around like yuppies fearing poor communities.
Kind of, except there
like,
is a
it's
real
just-
threat.
There exactly, but like I feel like it's coming from a place that is
Yeah.
fearful of, like, I don't think it's making a comment about that. I think it's just afraid of these small communities. And like you could say the same thing about Texas Chainsaw Massacre or whatever, but those are not like people that are obscenely wealthy and also deeply obnoxious.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
just
yeah.
obnoxious poor college kids, which makes it a whole different ballgame. They spend so much time at the beginning of this movie, like you said, setting these characters up as being like obnoxious, exorbitantly wealthy, think they can get away with everything, try to outrun the fucking cops. Like this is fucking rich privilege bullshit, man. That's all like what's happening there. And it's not like fun to then put them in this scenario if they're not gonna like, if they're still, we're just positioned to see them as put upon. Like our lead character is Chevy Chase. His whole role in this is to be put upon. He doesn't have an arc. He just exists. Shit happens to him. He gets snide about it, and that leads to worse things, but he's never really punished for it, and he never really learns the lesson not to be snide and not to like judge people or anything. There's nothing like that going on. And that's fine if you're going to go super cartoonish, but the whole movie isn't cartoonish. It just sets these characters up to be fucking insufferable, and then we have to suffer through them along with everything else. If you had replaced him with like, you replace Chevy Chase with Matthew Broderick and let him off the chain a little bit, that could have been fun, man. Like, I feel like he would put his best foot into this. If you replace them with just about anybody, even comedic actors, even non-comedic actors, like you replace them with somebody who seems like they're giving a shit and also like maybe can play off the idea of being like too mild to like not allow these other characters to come in and like I don't know, like fucking Seymour, what's his fucking name? Rick Moranis. Put Rick Moranis in this role, man.
He would have killed it.
Yeah.
He would have killed it. Yeah. Yeah.
That's all I have. I don't know. I'm
You guys
just
wanna
like
rate
dream
it?
casting at this point.
Yeah.
We can rate it.
Okay. Yeah, let's go and do it. Out of 5. Juice, why don't you kick us off? How do you feel about Nothing But Trouble?
Yeah, I wasn't crazy about this movie, but to be completely fair, as I was watching it, it wasn't necessarily a grind for me. I did kind of as each scene changed or each situation type of change, I did find myself being curious and honestly mostly kind of hopeful that the next scene was going to kind of give me something more, or like take me to a little bit further place or something, or take something that had already been established and really kind of pay it off. And so by the end of this, I didn't feel like, oh, I just wasted my time. I just kind of felt disappointed that never truly kind of came to fruition. But there are some positives, and so I'll just kind of go through my checklist again. The sets are great, and even up until the very end where everything kind of explodes or whatever, and wandering through the junkyard and the kind of traps they have set up, that all worked really well for me, and I liked it. Also too, the horror aspect for the most part worked for me too, because even to the very end where they escape and they come back with the people, and his kind of like, ooh, you got a beehive behind you and everybody's in on it. There is this kind of like stomach drop moment where you can kind of put yourself in that situation and think like, fuck, that really sucks. You think you're safe, you get away, you're trying to get some justice, and then you're stuck back in the same kind of situation again. But those don't really pay off. The kind of negatives that take away from some of those things are it's a too cartoony, I think. The him running out the wall at the end was too much for me. The kind of wall that pops up in the middle of the road to like block people, I kind of, maybe if some of that was toned down a little bit to where they had spikes in the road or something with a little bit more danger and still serve the same purpose but didn't go so cartoony, I think would have worked better for me. But at the same time, I love the roller coaster that spits out dry bones, and so like that's fucking cool. So I'm kind of up and down on that. Like I said, I love the slide, I love the design of the house. Even when they go up into the attic, you got all the IDs up there. I thought that was a cool, fun, like horror-esque moment. And I think
Hoffa.
that
That made me laugh.
was pretty
That was
good.
funny.
I think I'm just not as hot on Dan Aykroyd as Bob is. That character was more obnoxious and like again, the makeup with the twins and the judge, like it was more cringe than it was kind of like funny or effective for me. I mean, it was disgusting looking, but not in a way that made me kind of impressed, and more of just like kind of like maybe veer away. And so, yeah, I'm just not real crazy about this, but it wasn't like the worst thing ever. And I think the strongest aspects for me are going to be the set designs and the horror aspects that are in here that actually I did find somewhat effective in some way. So I think overall, I'm going to give this a 2 out of 5 for me.
All right.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Bob, out of
Two
5.
confused.
How you gonna do? I don't even know, what is this movie called? Too
No-
Much
nothing but
Trouble or
trouble.
something? Yeah,
Too
Nothing but
much trouble.
nothing but trouble.
Yeah, I like this movie quite a bit. I love the Scooby Doo aspects of this. There's a specific moment where Chevy and Demi are like laying in bed, and you like get a zoom in on like a portrait, and John, it's like clearly John Candy's portrait, but like his eyes are like behind it, moving back and forth, and the bed flips around, and then they try and escape, and like the walls start closing in the hallway, and they go down this like long slide that leads to like the basement. There's like these, I don't know, these like Scooby Doo notes that I honestly I wish there's more of. Like I want to see someone in like an old school knight costume, like walking around, like just lean into that a little bit more. I love that aspect of it though. I think Aykroyd kind of kills this like judge character. I think I find it funny. I understand why somebody might not. I also think like Dan Aykroyd's just a big fucking weirdo in a way that like I find really endearing. Like he's just like super. He's like really into, I don't know, like aliens and like ghosts and just science fiction, just weird humor and like I think he's really into stuff that he's into. He's just a big old weirdo, and he just kind of got lucky because he's really funny. It's sometimes maybe not so much in this movie, but I don't know. Like I'm endeared to him in that way. I guess he's just a weirdo that like is successful in what he's trying to do. So I don't know. I like seeing him direct this movie. I like seeing him in this movie. I think the dinner scene where he's eating that fucking hot dog, I think it's funny as shit, personally. I love that goofy like musical interlude with the Digital Underground. I do think it's just sort of an interesting like artifact of a movie. They gave them like $40 million and they hired like the best DP in Hollywood and like the best set dressers and like the comedic actors of the day. And like Demi Moore was like a leading lady and like just like loaded this movie down. And of course it flopped like a motherfucker, but it's interesting that like Hollywood would take such a gamble in that way and like they just let Aykroyd make this weird fucking movie. I just like that it exists. I think in a way, I think it balances the horror and the comedy somewhat well. And like the Texas Chainsaw 2 vibes come through really strong. So like if you are really into that movie, I think there's a lot here. I think all the prosthetics look really good, even though like I don't really love like the Bobo and Little Devil characters. They're fucking weird, dude. I don't know, but like the prosthetics look good anyways. The roller coaster is dope. Like the facade of the house, like the junkyard, is all of it looks incredible. The movie looks fantastic. Um, Perhaps Chevy Chase is like the biggest whiff on this. Also,
Whiff of what?
like just general, like he shouldn't have been in it. They should have fucking hired.
I meant he was shit.
Whiff of shit. Yeah. Pud collar is a term I'd never heard before. I guess
yeah.
it's a
What did that mean? Was that? I think.
No, I
googled it.
Oh,
yeah,
I
googled it too. Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, so it is a cock
like a
ring?
cock
Is that
sleeve.
confirmed?
Oh, it's a sleeve.
I saw what. Well, I think it could be one or the. I think one said a ring, one said like a sleeve, because he even doesn't he say something about. Maybe I was just Googling it, but there's something about like it being ribbed, or like the idea of, because he says, I don't think that's a void I could fill or something.
Oh yeah. And he says, "I'll just put on a pud collar or wear a pud collar." Or
and I thought it was kind of like an extensive sleeve, or one that's got like ribs on it or something that like I don't know. So
well, if you guys are listening and you know all the ins and outs of the pud collar, please call in and let us know.
Urban Dictionary defines pud collar as basically a cock ring. It can be fancy with vibrators built in, or simple leather or rubber ring. Can also include a studded or ribbed sleeve.
Okay, so there's you got options.
So he thinks. So the joke is he's taking Chevy Chase's comment and assuming he means that he's impotent.
Yeah.
You
So
can You can help.
I figured that's what it was,
collar.
but I wasn't 100% until I looked that
up. Like I understand why people might not like this movie. I think the Brazilians could have been totally written out of the movie, and it wouldn't have affected it really in any way whatsoever, which is kind of a bummer. I wish they would have given John Candy a little bit more to work with, because he's truly fucking hilarious, and I love him as an actor. I wish he just had more speaking lines or just more to do. I don't know. There's also like a really awkward scene in this movie that I did fucking dislike quite a bit, where Demi and Chevy are in the bedroom. I think it's when they first get in the bedroom, and I can't tell if like Demi's character is like placating Chevy. Like
dude, I don't know, man.
She says a lot of lines that are just like garbage lines, like, "Oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't handle myself. I'm so attracted to you," and it just seems like out of character for her.
And then
I can't tell.
out.
And then pass it. Like, is that supposed to be funny? Is she trying to like fuck with him? Is she playing with him? Or
I thought she was playing with him, and it was going to be like, where she like, this is a bad example, but like she was going to walk away with his wallet and be like, "I got you," or some shit like that. Like it seemed like it was I'm saying one thing, but it's actually you that I'm talking about.
There's no payoff to that.
Right.
It was a weird.
She's just like
setup.
very man. She's like. I don't know, man. It's like hysterical woman trope. I don't.
Yeah, it didn't fit her character. It seemed way out of place. I didn't understand.
She's like half the time very hysterical, and half the time like incredibly assertive and confident. Like when she insists that she goes and knocks on the door at the end of the movie with the cops there. Like I don't know, man. It's very strange. I can't figure her out in this movie.
Yeah. Anyway, I've been going on for a while. I'm trying to check my nostalgia here. I'm still going to come in higher than Juice with a 3.5 out of 5 for this movie.
Okay.
Ray and Deezy, what do you think?
Yeah. I also don't have the nostalgia value for this. I first saw this in late college, maybe something like that. So it was very, very late to the party by comparison. I think I've kind of already like said a lot about what I disliked about this movie. So I think what I'm going to do is just expound upon the better movie that I wish this was, which it features Rick Moranis in Chevy Chase's role, not as a sleazy, snarky banker, but as a recently wealthy poor guy who became wealthy and became a successful banker and still is kind of uncomfortable with it and doesn't really know how to handle himself around rich people, and goes on this little tour because he's strong-armed by the old money people in the room to take them on this little trip. That's what leads them there. And he has this whole back and forth with the judge. He's a banker, but he's also like, he knows what it's like to come up from nothing. He knows what it's like to have had his family fucked over by somebody before, or something like that. And by the end of the movie, it's an act of mercy by him that is his arc, where it's like, just because I am now a wealthy man doesn't mean I can't be a decent man. And that's the difference. Like, I'm not going to, it's that way. It doesn't necessarily demonize poor people and show like this whole story about rich people just being uncomfortable being around poor people. That's what this movie kind of feels like in a lot of ways, at least in the setup. So like, I kind of feel like there's a better movie in there somewhere like that. It just overall, this movie just doesn't hang together well. The one thing that is keeping it together is the incredible set design, cinematography, all those things. Like, it's all really, really impressive, and it's a lot of fun to look at. Unfortunately, like, the comedy doesn't mostly land for me. I feel like only a few of the actors are really putting in all the work that they would normally put into something they care about, and Dan is certainly the biggest one of those. I think they could have cut out the Brazilians maybe, or done something differently with them. I think they could have cut out the fucking giant prosthetic babies, or done something different with them. Like, Rob, I liked your idea about like the Knight and making it even more cartoonish, like shit like that. Like, replace those characters with something like that, or make those characters, I don't know, like funny. Like they just kind of are aimlessly, like, it's not enough for them to just be gross. Gross isn't a joke in and of itself. Like, I don't know, not for every joke anyway. You got to do something more. So long story short is, yeah, I have problems with this movie. I like what it was sort of, I like bits of it. I just don't think that it was well crafted overall, and it's a damn shame because parts of it were really well crafted. So I'm going to go with Juice on a 2.0 on this. It's not a movie that I particularly love, but I can see some good bones in there. Lots of bones. The strips the bones.
Bone stripper.
Stripper. Sounds
All
like
right.
a hot Halloween kind of evening.
Yeah, I mean, it does have its own theme song that you can listen to. It's on
Okay.
Spotify, so check that out. With Randy's
Plump, so right.
with Randy's 2.0, that's going to put our aggregate at a 2.5. And
That's fair.
per usual, we have encouraged you guys, if you do grab a U pick, we are encouraging you guys to send in an email or a voicemail with your own rating and review for the movie you chose for us to talk about. Carmen did send in an email for Nothing But Trouble. Juice, do you have that pulled up?
I do. It says, "Hi guys, thank you for reviewing Nothing But Trouble. It's such a bizarre movie that I don't think gets talked about enough. I hope you had a good time watching it." So for me, this movie was on HBO a lot when I was a kid, and it has now become my go-to horror comfort movie. It never fails to make me laugh or cringe, and no matter how many times I've seen it, I'm always delighted to see Digital Underground because I always forget about the rap video with Tupac in this fucking movie. The things I love about this movie, I think Dan Aykroyd and Demi Moore knocked it out of the park. They genuinely seemed to be enjoying themselves throughout the movie and were committed to their characters. I also love the world that the production created. Doesn't feel like anyone did a half-ass job with the sets or production design. They made some nice touches with the chain link fence on the roller coaster carts and the giant half-size mannequins in the dump yard, a sprinkle of depravity here and there. It would be cool to see the Volkenheiser mansion recreated as a Universal Horror Nights. Yeah, that would be cool.
Hell
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be really cool. That would be fun to venture through. This movie always feels like fun and never fails to entertain me. I would give this movie a solid 4 stars. Dan Aykroyd should be writing and directing sequels and prequels as we speak. Thanks again, guys. Remember to follow the rules of the road and stay away from any freckled hot dogs. Woo. Carmen B. P.S. Would be curious to know, do you guys have any horror comfort movies? Hashtag hard with soju. Okay.
Didn't say that. Soft with the soju. For sure.
So yeah, Carmen really likes this movie, and it makes me feel bad for
Yeah, I don't
feeling
mean to
so
shit
critical.
on
But
your comfort movie.
yeah, that's
My
not the
my
intention.
gut said 4 stars, and I was trying to check it a little bit.
All right,
So
Bob's-
I get it.
It sounds
I
like
get
she's
it.
pretty hard with Bob, if I had to be honest with that.
Yeah,
We're hard
rigid
together.
with Bob,
Rigid.
I believe is the term we use.
Rigid
around it.
Bob.
Erect with Bob.
Ooh,
Not even
no.
sugarcoating anymore, not even
Nope.
trying to.
just
Erect
getting right to it.
penises with Bob.
God damn.
To my moment of glory.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to like this movie, and like for the most of the part, those reasons are like pretty subjective, and I get them.
Yeah,
I don't see what she sees into me in this movie. It seems like you don't see what she sees in Dan Aykroyd. I can see what she sees. I can see what somebody sees in Dan Aykroyd in this movie. I can see it, but I don't get that thrill from it myself. So yeah, I think the haunted house sounds great. I think that you're going to be waiting a long fucking time for a sequel to this movie.
Yeah, for sure.
A famous box office bomb with an aging, and in some cases no longer on this earth cast.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Well, how about comfort movies? I was kind of thinking about that a little bit, and I would kind of agree that I think some of my more comfort movies do have some kind of blend and at least some kind of comedy in them, or more lighthearted feel. And surprisingly, I was thinking about a lot of Michael Dougherty films. I kind of have that feeling for me. Trick or Treat, Krampus, and honestly even Godzilla. I would like throw on Godzilla, the one that he made. That one I love. It's a kind of fun-esque movie.
King of Monsters.
Yeah, and even one that's not necessarily horror, but I kind of feel a similar kind of way about. Or well, one more that's horror would kind of be maybe something like Return of the Living Dead, or even oh my god, From Dusk Till Dawn would be something like that that's got some comedy to it. And even kind of like Mad Max Fury Road is one that I like to just
Furry Road.
That's a spin-off. That's a little
my favorite road. That's a hard road right there.
That's a hard road.
That's a hard road.
But those are some like kind of the ones that I would be happy to throw on almost at like any time and just have going on in the background, or kind of had a shitty day and like want to lift it up a little bit or something like that. Yeah. How about you guys? You got comfort movies?
The one that comes to mind for me, and like there's probably a few, I'm sure there are, but like the one that immediately springs to mind for me is Shaun of the Dead. I totally agree. Like horror comedies are a sweet spot. Certainly, it's a lot easier than a straight horror. Even though I love a lot of straight horror, I kind of have to be in the mood for whatever kind of scares are involved. But for like Shaun of the Dead, like I'm not there for the scares. I'm there for the funny jokes or whatever to some degree, at least at this point, and just the nostalgia of it. Really, any of those Edgar Wright classics I could throw on and enjoy. I would also say Return of the Living Dead. I would also, and I think Bob will agree with me, on Sleepaway Camp.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's high up there. Reanimator's up there, I guess. Little Shop of Horrors. That's kind of top tier. Also, speaking of Rick, those are good ones for me. That's more than enough. Clue is a given, by the way.
Clue, good call.
Clue's a big one for sure. I agree with a lot of what you guys said. I would add The Burbs is a major comfort horror movie for me.
Dude, this is a lesser Burbs. I had that thought when I was watching this movie.
I agree.
Much inferior.
They're in the
Burbs.
same realm. They exist in the same place for me.
But Tom Hanks, put in the
work.
Showed
up. The Burbs is far more successful, I think, to this movie. I still love this one, but yeah, The Burbs is on another level for sure. Return of the Living Dead is fantastic. Shaun of the Dead is fantastic. Reanimator. I would add Night of the Creeps is definitely a horror comfort movie for me. It's got that comedy in there too, and Yeah, the horror comedies are Sleepaway Camp. Um, I would say Halloween, but I can only watch Halloween during October, so like it's very limited.
Yeah. That's why I kind
It-
of said like other than Michael Dougherty films, but when
yeah,
they're there, like they're almost the ones I want to watch the most. Like I
yeah,
gotta
yeah,
watch Trick or Treat. I gotta fucking watch
yeah.
Krampus.
I would
Scream is kind of up there too for me.
Yeah.
also
Actually.
the Scream. Yeah, Scream is one for sure that you can watch year round. The first like four Friday the 13th movies are pretty comfort food for me. You kind of watch them whenever too. That's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for picking this week's flip, Carmen. And thanks for also supporting us for so fucking long
Yeah,
on
thank you,
Patreon.
Carmen. Fuck.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
Thank you so
was
much.
getting all the information done today, putting it in notes, and I was like, holy shit, Carmen is a straight up OG.
Yeah.
So thank you
Been
so much.
hard
for
with
your
us for
support.
a long time, Carmen. Thank you.
Yeah, 4 hours? Nah, 4 years.
4
Consult
years
your
strong.
doctor because
What?
your shit is hard with
What
us.
the fuck is happening?
Damn.
Oh man.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and see what the critics and users think about Nothing But Trouble over on Rotten Tomatoes.
Certified fresh to death.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Rotten Tomatoes segment in which I'm going to have these gentlemen guess within the best of their abilities what the aggregate positive score is for Nothing But Trouble, starting with critics and ending with users. We're going to start with those critics. Like I said, there are 25 reviews counted here. Keep that in mind. There are 25 critical reviews. Bob, I'm going to start with you tonight. Where do you think those critics are going to land on their aggregate positive score?
It's low. This has got to be low, man.
Low.
But like how? Yeah, low.
Is it low? Is it from the window to the
shit.
wall? Is it to the sweat drop down your ball?
The sweat is dripping down the balls for sure
Okay.
on this one.
Okay. All
Down
right.
the spotted sausages.
Hula, 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 bula,
Bobby
bula,
need to
bula.
get that checked out.
Yeah. Hey, give me a. Give
Leader
me
cola.
30%, please.
30% from Bob. Juice, where are you going with this one?
I was feeling a natural 35. I thought Bob was gonna kind of like steal my spot there. So I don't know. I just want to go 35.
35. All right. Well, neither of you are particularly close because this is a rock bottom 12% on Rotten Tomatoes. Not a beloved film.
Even
amongst
me and
the-
Randy are way more kind on this.
Yeah, I think time has been kinder to this movie because I don't know. I feel like these were like, it's like if a very modern comedian comes out with a very tepid movie now, like it would be pretty lambasted. But years on, when we're not like completely swimming in fucking John Candy content anymore, it hits different, I think.
In 10 years, like Hubie Halloween is going to be 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Just
Oh
wait.
my god.
I still haven't seen
That's-
that. Maybe I'll watch it this year.
I
You should
like
watch
it.
it. You should. It's fine. It's
Yeah.
fine. It's inoffensive. Well, it's
Yeah.
probably kind of offensive in a few ways, I'm sure, but it's Adam Sandler movie, so I'm sure in some way it is. Anyway, moving on to the audience ratings, there's 10,000 plus ratings on the audience side. So we're dealing with a lot more people here. Juice, what do you think those people think of this film?
Well, speaking of like the kind of nostalgia stuff going on, I think there's got to be some of that. So I'll bump it up higher and say 40% what I gave it.
40%. Man, 5-point bump. Big one.
Yeah. Well, but I was way
Uh,
off though, so I got to temper that.
True. That's true. Bob, where are you going with that? You taking the under,
I'm
the
gonna go-
over, something else?
I'm going to go 30 again. I still don't think it's very high.
30%. All right, we got a little bit closer this time around. It's actually a whopping 48%.
Oh,
So
there we
Oh.
go.
Damn.
That's a hell
almost down the middle.
I was old. Hellskeep.
What?
Can I?
What? Oh, Bob.
Can we backtrack and get that Hellskeep?
No, you missed
Can-
your spot, Bob. I can't.
You're gonna look at me and you're gonna tell me that I'm wrong?
I'm not responsible
Grow
for your
up.
skeet, Bob. Come on, you get responsible for
Dude,
your own
you
skeet.
Every
you
ma-
are responsible for my skeet.
Shut the fuck up.
Anyway. So here's the critics'
best
consensus.
bump we've ever had.
There's nothing good in Nothing But Trouble, a grotesque comedy that is more likely to make audiences ill than make them laugh. The consensus reads that. So, not a beloved film. All right.
True.
And now, just for laughs, we're going to read one, maybe two of the critical reviews and see if there's any gold to mine here. Let's see. Occasionally, the talents of the cast burn through the haze of misfires and remembered routines. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
I'm still
This is
riding
much
that
better.
bump.
I know it's fucking me up.
Damn.
Pretty good.
All right. Here's one that's a little bit more to the point. Nothing but crap. That's the entire thing.
Dude. And we can't write for Rotten Tomatoes yet. But
Tonight, yeah, we're
that's
getting
what they
closer.
got.
Hey, yeah, that should be part of our housekeeping, by the way.
God
We need
damn.
like how many? We got a couple
17,
recently.
I think 17
I
more
think that's like
5-star reviews
Yeah.
on iTunes.
Thank you to anyone who
Thank
rated
you,
us
yeah,
recently.
yeah,
we got a couple.
We got a few. Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah.
So if you haven't,
What-
please take 5 seconds and rate us on
If
Apple,
iTunes.
iTunes.
if you
Yeah,
think our
iTunes.
reviews are on
Yeah.
the level of someone saying nothing but trouble, more like nothing but crap, please rate
Yeah.
and review us.
If you
Let
think
us
we
know
can
that
at
part of
least
that
match
fucking sound.
that.
We won't
I think
be
we can.
worse.
I think we can clear that bar. I think we
Yeah.
can do it.
Yeah.
We got to work
We-
at it. We're gonna
We won't
train.
be worse.
Um,
Certify us, please. Thank you.
Please,
One last one,
please.
because this is just proving how hacky that line is. It's nothing but trouble and agony and pain and suffering and obnoxious, totally unfunny bad taste. It's nothing but miserable.
I wish they just
Oh
ended it
my
at, it's
God.
nothing.
That's if you're gonna riff
That
on
would
that
be
line.
better.
That seems like
Yeah.
close to the-
See,
That would be better.
come on, here we go.
We're already doing better. We're
Yeah.
already doing better.
Don't touch me.
All right, that's it for Rotten Tomatoes. Bob, how you
Yeah,
feeling
there's a
about
lot of trivia on this movie, actually. Let's get into it.
It's totally time for trivia.
All right, boys. So this is not going to be a surprise to anybody. The crew enjoyed working with John Candy and Demi Moore, but Chevy Chase proved to be a nightmare.
What?
Yeah, Chase was
Heavy?
get out of
America's
town.
sweetheart?
Yeah, America's asshole. America's doo-doo filled asshole.
Oh
Uh,
my goodness.
Chase
Like
was
nothing I'd ever smelled before in my life.
he was apparently verbally abusive to everyone on set
What?
and tried to speak on Moore's
Oh my
behalf about her skimpy costume and stated that he had more worth than Aykroyd because Chase had a bigger paycheck, even though Aykroyd was directing. The crew was furious at Chase's treatment of Aykroyd, with one crew member even threatening to drop a brick on Chase's head if he ever spoke to the director like that again.
That was me last week.
And Old Glory waving.
It was.
Thank you to that hero.
I am Dan Aykroyd. Yeah, I mean,
I am just the crew.
that makes sense.
I
mean,
am the crew.
Chevy Chase is apparently just a fucking prick to work with, and
Damn.
it seems consistent across the board,
Yeah.
no matter what production he's
I-
on. So
I think he's maybe one of he just comes from that era of like certainly SNL stars or whatever. Like he's the poster child of being just a huge fucking baby about like screen time and like needing to be like competitiveness, like
Yeah.
petty competitive bullshit. And like I don't know, we'll never know exactly what it was like on this movie or whatever or anything really, but like the pattern is there. It's
Yeah.
I think it's
there's a pattern.
fair for
Yeah.
anyone to be like Chevy Chase is probably kind of a prick. Like
Yeah.
I've seen behind the
more
scenes
than
footage of
that.
Community.
It's
I mean,
He's
there-
kind of a prick.
yeah.
Dude, you can listen to that voicemail that he left the director of
Dan
Community,
Harmon.
Dan Harmon. Like you can just listen to that on YouTube whenever you want, and it is
Oh, yeah.
unfortunate. So do that if you want to.
So Rick Moranis, nice guy, better actor.
Hell yeah.
I would agree. Yeah, this movie had a $40 million budget. It made $8 million at the box office. So that's a bomb. That's a bomb.
When's that sequel coming?
Waiting on it. Still waiting on it.
God.
Your boy Roger
Mania 2 on a budget.
Vulcan Deuce. Your boy Roger Ebert hated this movie. Get out of town.
What? Hold on.
He hated it so much that he
My boy
refused to.
Ebes.
He refused to write a review for it after giving it one of his most emphatic thumbs downs ever. I guess they had a show in '86 and he gave it a thumbs down, but wouldn't rate it. He said that when he went to a weeknight showing of the movie in 1991, and the theater was almost abandoned except for him and a few adults and several teenagers who were being very loud and rude. And Ebert apparently walked up to them. I don't believe this, if I'm being honest with you. He walked up to the teens and asked them to be even louder so he didn't have to listen to the movie anymore. I don't believe that.
We are very impressed.
I don't believe that.
Fucking great Ebes.
No. That's like those.
That's like that.
Those
It's
fucking
the-
meatheads who try to impress on fucking Twitter and shit by
Yeah.
saying the
Yeah,
most obvious.
like, I
not-
overheard somebody saying something in a coffee shop, and then I rebutted with this, and everyone clapped and
Also,
raised me on their shoulders
and gave me
took
free coffee
If you're-
and for
Needless
life.
to say, I
truly-
don't pay for my own coffee there anymore.
if you like are truly a movie critic and like that's what you do and like you want to be taken seriously, pay the fuck attention to the movie, even if you
Dude,
don't
I know.
like it. Like,
Dude, refusing to write a review, I mean, you would have to do that on moral grounds, and there's nothing immoral, well, not nothing, but there's mostly nothing immorally about this movie to the point where you as a fucking film critic can't
Would not
comment
review
upon it.
Yeah.
Get the fuck over it.
eat my ass, Ebert, is what I'm saying.
This is the
Um,
level of biting criticism that we could bring to the Rotten Tomatoes near
Rotten
you.
Tomatoes. Yeah. So Aykroyd, I mentioned they tried to get several directors on this and they passed. He offered the movie to John Hughes, didn't want to direct it. John Landis was another one who passed as well.
Those
And
bad choices anyway.
Yeah.
I think Landis would be great. John Hughes, no, not. I don't think so. Landis,
Yeah,
I could see.
Landis maybe. At least he like is in the realm. I don't think Hughes
Yeah.
is anywhere in the realm.
So Aykroyd ended up directing it. Apparently Chevy Chase wrote an autobiography called "I'm Chevy Chase and You Are Not." Came
Oh,
out
God.
2007, which
That's a reference to an SNL bit.
Okay.
That's not
okay.
that's not quite as
over my head. Then yeah.
Yeah.
that's
So-
his sign off for Weekend Update or sign on. I can't remember which.
Okay. Got well. According to his autobiography, before the script for this movie was finished, Chevy knew it would be the worst movie he would ever make. Apparently.
That's
There
proven
you go.
not to be true at all, by the way. Like,
Yep.
What's his
That
worst
is,
movie? What?
Oh my god, there was one that he did. I'll have to look it up because I don't remember. Please continue while I look this up.
Okay.
Absolutely.
In a 2021 commentary for this film's first Blu-ray release, Dan Aykroyd reveals that he was briefly hospitalized during production due to the overwhelming stress of directing and playing two
Aw,
large supporting
Jesus
roles in
Christ,
the
dude.
movie. Yeah, he was in
That
the
makes
hospital for
like
a
Chevy
week, I
Chase
think.
being shitty even worse.
Even worse.
So much
yeah.
worse.
Come
I feel like
on.
that interview I saw of him praising Dan was like in retribution.
Yeah,
probably.
probably.
Like, just,
Yeah,
like
like,
walking that back a little bit.
just kind of doing his buddy a solid because he was such a fucking prick for however long it took to make this.
His buddy.
I'm just gonna read through some
Yeah. Yeah.
well-known and loved Chevy Chase film titles here. You ready? Here's one. Funny Money.
I don't know.
The
what that
Karate
is.
Dog. Bad
What?
Meat.
There's another one called
What?
Funny Farm. Funny
What?
Money.
Yeah.
How
Funny
much?
Farm. Funny Farm is actually one of his better known ones.
Is
if
it?
you can believe
Okay.
that. Yeah, but not great. And of course, the absolute classic that everyone loves and nobody dislikes, European Vacation. So, not your worst film, Chevy. I'm so sorry to say.
Woof.
I don't think I've ever seen European Vacation.
It's fine.
dog shit. No, it's dog shit.
I've seen
No.
regular in Vegas and
Christmas.
Christmas.
Those
of
are
course.
the ones. Yeah.
Those are the ones worth watching.
Those are the ones. Yeah.
European Vacation is literally so fucking boring. I could not deal with it.
Yeah. Just a little bit more trivia. The budget was spiraling out of control. Aykroyd was told to quote stop the bleeding from the money men. I guess they spent a lot of money on used toasters and broken down cars. The mansion itself was 90 feet tall. Like the facade was 90 feet tall. They went to some junkyard somewhere, I forget, and like bought everything and loaded up several tractor trailers full of junk and brought it back to Hollywood to like dress the set. So they went over budget by I think about $5 million, something like that.
All on junk, not even stuff that you could possibly
Trash.
resell.
Yeah.
Some other Chevy Chase films include Panda vs. Aliens, Electra Vacation, the very excellent
What
Mr.
vacation?
Dundee.
What was
Electra Vacation? I think that was
Oh,
actually an
is that-
advertisement where he reprised his Clark Griswold role.
Oh, okay.
A Christmas in Vermont, Hedgehogs.
What?
All right, now back to the trivia.
What are these movies? This is the last bit I had. Dan Aykroyd was the only director to direct himself into winning a Razzie for Worst Supporting Actor until your boy M. Night Shyamalan also received that award for Lady in the Water.
There we go. That's
Oh,
appropriate.
boy.
There you
That's
go.
Haven't seen that
appropriate.
one.
Yeah, that's all the trivia I have. Let's go ahead and talk Hooter of the Week.
Hell yeah, let's go.
Straight chillin'. Gooder of the week.
Juice. What is a cooter and why do we hunt them?
Oh, Cooter is a character type and a straight chillin' exclusive. Thank you to Gint Brisket for their #1 hit single, the Cooter intro song.
Hunting for cooters, parentheses, cooter intro song.
Cooter.
The
Hunting for cooters.
The 5 points of cooterdom are sexual deviance, manipulation, smug arrogance, overall look and attire, and overall patheticness. Boys, this one should be pretty easy this week. Shall we go ahead and lock up the judge?
Probably.
Let's start
yeah.
there.
Yeah,
It's the most material to work with there.
the judge. Manipulation, check.
Check.
chart.
Yeah.
Okay.
Smug arrogance?
Smug arrogance, check.
Lots of that.
Look and attire.
Yes.
This
Check.
man's nose,
It's a
a prosthetic
It's a
nose,
dick.
is a dick.
It is a dick.
This man has a literal dick nose. So
Whoa.
I mean,
whoa.
a
Cock schnoz.
Yeah.
It's a look.
Overall patheticness, I would also say yes.
I'd say relatively pathetic. He's kind of in control of everything, so it's
Yeah, he is pretty
He's in control of like the smallest pond. It's like big fish, small pond.
not really
kinda
though, because it
situation.
turns out
Well,
that
I
the
guess,
entire
yeah, he
police
does.
force is
Yeah,
on his
yeah,
side.
That's true. That's true.
ACAB in this particular movie for sure.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
and fucking, did you notice that this is just for my walk hard stands, but the chief or whatever was the dad from Walk Hard. The wrong kid died. That guy. Love it.
No, I didn't register that at all.
That was him.
And then there was one more, sexual deviance. Yes.
Forcing people to get married for
Yeah,
one.
I would say forcing people to get married and tell them
yeah.
to wear a cock ring as
so
to fuck their daughter.
What is it?
That's an
Hood
easy
something?
for them.
Pud
That's
collar.
granddaughter.
Pud collar.
Let's start a band
Pud.
called Pud Collar.
Let's not.
Holy shit.
Like nothing I'd ever smelled before in my life.
Let's not do that.
We are Pud
Yeah.
Collar.
No, we're not.
We play impotent rock for impotent men.
That's appropriate.
Oh shit.
Pud rock is what we should.
So yeah,
be
he
calling
goes in the pokey for sure.
it.
You got Bob. You got Bob.
Fucking
So
Collar.
plump, so right.
Oh shit!
Is this that new putt rock you got, Bumba?
Welcome to Planet Radio, the Pud Rock Station.
Slinger! New putt rock station.
The new Pud Rock.
Eat crystals and listen to Pud.
Fucking Gimp Brisket, the new
Rock.
hit Pud Rock band.
Bob.
Anyway.
Like
Shit.
that.
Oh shit!
We've got Bob a couple times today.
Banger! That is a local
hunting for
ass joke.
Yeah.
Oh my
Hopefully
God.
Franklin's listening. He'll
I don't
know
think
what's
that we can
Yeah.
limit the pokey
No.
to I think we can go a little bit further and lock up more people if we really want to get down to it. Because I kind of feel like
the whole like squad. Really.
the whole
Family,
squad,
yeah.
for
Even maybe
one,
the
but
Brazilians.
I think Chevy to some
Yeah.
degree.
Chevy
I
as
think,
a person, yeah.
As a
Chevy-
human being.
well, as a human
yeah.
being, yes. I meant his character too, though. Like he's
Okay,
just
yeah.
like, I don't know, man, manipulative, to
Smug
some extent.
arrogance.
Smug arrogance out the fucking ass.
Yeah.
He tried to
I know.
outrun the fucking cops. Who does that? Like
Rich
they're not
people
gonna
who don't
give
think who
up.
can bribe the cops.
Yeah.
It didn't work.
Yeah.
Nope.
Everyone
know.
in
I
this
think-
movie kind of sucks, honestly.
Yeah, I
Demi
don't know
is
that there's.
like, fine.
She
I-
kind of sucks
she's just-
sometimes.
She sucks as written. like
Yeah.
the writing for her is not very.
Even she was like, "Can I just take your car?"
Flattering.
It's like, no.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Why
what a
would you
weird
take
question.
my
What the
car
fuck was
to
that?
That's
Atlantic
fair.
They
City?
just met on an elevator.
Yeah.
fair.
What are you
Like,
fucking talking about?
Yeah.
Like no, you.
I'm a good
cannot
driver.
have
What?
I'll
No.
drive.
my-
It's like,
my fucking car.
yeah,
No.
well, rent a taxi or fucking take a
And
train.
the whole reason was to like break up with a guy or something. Like, and we never even got clarity on that. And then he
Everyone
just like,
sucks.
I thought it was a
yeah, this
business
movie, man.
related
That's
thing.
It was, but
yeah,
they
that
were
is weird.
dating too.
But
in
it was
some
also dating, and
capacity.
like Chevy asked, like, "What are you gonna do? Break up with him in a boardroom? That would have been weird." And it's like, you were driving her, motherfucker. You didn't have to do that shit.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
I don't know, man.
Yeah,
There's some weird shit going on, and everybody in this movie is
pretty
culpable.
much everyone's a cooter, I think.
It's a
cooter
cooter
ass
filled
movie.
movie.
Everybody but Dan Aykroyd, the person.
Okay.
Hey, hey.
Depends
Also
on your
John
feelings towards
Candy,
pseudoscience.
I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't think
John
Demi
Candy.
is supposed to be a bad.
Oh
I don't-
yeah,
I don't-
yeah,
I don't-
John Candy's
Chevy's the only person I'm extending to the real world cooterdom.
I'll sign on. I'll co-sign.
sure.
that.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
There we go. What
time
do we
is
do
it?
now?
What do we
What-
do now? We can do a.
What?
a
Who are
quick-
we?
We can do a quick what we've been watching. Let's do it.
Keeping the beat, keeping the beat. Yes, it's true, I'm keeping the beat.
Hey, gang, what you been watching?
Randeezy, what you been watching?
Short list for me this week. Still riding that Tears of the Kingdom train. Gonna be for a while. It's super fun. We finally got through the end of the most recent season of The Bear. It is an incredible show. That show has some of the best fucking music in the biz right now for TV soundtrack. Love that shit, and great acting and great everything else. It's a really great show. And then last but not least, I saw Asteroid City, the new Wes Anderson movie. I don't know about this one.
Seems
Mhm.
pretty
Yeah.
divisive. Yeah, I haven't checked it out yet, but
It's another one that was like this movie in some degree, where it was like aesthetically like very cool. Like I
Mhm.
love the look of it, but I have no idea what it amounted to. Like I'm
Yeah.
really not clear what, and it wasn't particularly funny to me on the journey, the way that other of his more meandering movies can be. I was just mostly like nonplussed by the story and the shit that was going on in this movie outside of the aesthetics of it. So not my strongest recommend for a Wes Anderson movie. By any
It was
means.
like super dry. Like it didn't.
It's got
the
like
emotion
multiple
was
levels of
not-
irony going,
Yeah.
or like not even irony. I don't even know what, like multiple facades going with Bryan Cranston doing a thing, and then like I don't know. man.
Yeah. The Cranston stuff, like I don't understand why it's there. It seems like a waste.
Dude,
Like, I
that
don't-
chanting scene, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a chanting scene. I think you probably know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I don't know what the fuck
Yeah.
that was.
There's it doesn't
I
feel
need
like it
somebody to
works.
explain it to me, and maybe I'll
Yeah.
like it better.
I need an adult.
Yeah,
Damn.
definitely. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, it's a little dry.
That's it for me.
A little too dry. Okay, Juice, what about you?
Finally breaking away from the festival watches. I got to watch. So I watched Insidious: The Red Door, which is a new flick. Number 5 in the Insidious franchise, and it was okay. Kind of going back, I know they did some kind of prequel films and stuff like that,
The
but
Last Key.
yeah, this one was directed by Patrick Wilson, and I think it's his directing debut. Yeah.
I didn't know it was his directorial debut.
Yeah, and so it kind of gets back to the original family, and those characters, and the son, he's kind of grown up, and yeah, it was okay. And I actually did a mini cast on it, which will be coming out eventually. So yeah, I thought it was a pretty like solid, probably like good theater horror watch for the summer. I'm not gonna blow your mind, but pretty good. I watched a new film called Sanctuary because the premise was interesting to me, and I thought it might be a little more horror or thrillery than it kind of ended up being, but it did have elements of it. So Sanctuary is this movie about it's essentially like a kind of bottle situation, chamber piece, where there's this rich guy who owns like these hotel properties. He's like super rich, young, good looking guy or whatever. And he has this kind of relationship with this dominatrix who he hires to come in and like treat him like shit or whatever. And he kind of tries to break up with her, and shit spirals because of that, which is a cool premise because of the dynamic of the relationship or whatever. And kind of where it takes it. And it's always kind of fucking with your mind, where you're always like, are they in it? Are they not in it? Like, kind of where it's going and how the dynamic shift and stuff like that. It's pretty interesting film, and well acted. It's just two people the whole time in this kind of essentially hotel room, and it was pretty good. I kind of wish it was like a little maybe darker than it ended up being, but overall solid performances and interesting.
That's what a boy likes.
That's what a boy likes. Well, not this boy, but some boys. And also finally catching up, because everyone has been creaming their fucking shorts. I finally watched the first season of The Bear. I'm behind on this one. And to be honest, because people have like overhyped it so much, going through the first season, I was like, okay, it's good. Is it that good? And honestly, it wasn't until the last episode where I was like, okay, that was good for the first season.
It kind of has to culminate. It really does.
And at least, and the thing is that last episode was like a 45-minute episode, and the one right before it was only like 20 minutes. And I was thinking, honestly, from my perspective, it's good. It was good. It's only 8 episodes, so only 4 hours tops, But I was thinking, honestly, this movie probably could have been that last episode, and maybe that one right before it, where kind of shit starts to go wild, and then maybe like the first 2 episodes and like been an hour and 45-minute movie, and it probably would have worked just as well. Honestly, there's a little bit of filler in there, I think, but that last episode kind of really saved my kind of overall perspective of it, and it was good. So
I like to think that from my watching season 2, I want to say that like I don't think you have that much of a problem with. I don't think you're gonna have that much feeling of filler.
Dude, I have seen countless some episodes 10 out of 10 across the board. One of the best things to ever exist.
It gets better,
TV.
I think. I think it does. It gets better.
So, I don't know, man. It's just crafted so well.
That's good. Okay.
Yeah. It's great.
But I was a little dubious, but yeah, that last episode pulled it off, and I was like, okay, that was good. It was very satisfying ending, which I was very pleased with. So I'll hop into season 2 probably this week, and so I'm excited about it because the hype is all over the place. So we'll see. But yeah, other than that, that's all I've been watching. It's nice to kind of get into some not festival stuff. Bob, what you been watching, my guy?
I wanted to throw out a recommendation real quick. You were talking about that like dominatrix movie, and you wish it maybe was a little darker. There's a movie that came out in I want to say 2019, maybe 2020. It's on Shudder, or at least it was when I watched it. It's called Dogs Don't Wear Pants.
Okay.
It's one of my favorite movies of that year. I recommend checking it out. It is exactly the setup you're describing, but it goes in different places, and it's very dark. It's extremely good.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, Dogs Don't Wear Pants. I believe it's still on Shudder. It's a foreign film. I can't remember where it came from, what country made it. I don't remember, but super fucking good. Stuff I've been watching this week. I finally watched Hamilton, the one that I believe is on Disney Plus. It's good. I mean, I'm not like a musical guy. I believe I enjoyed it as much as I can enjoy like any sort of like musical stage production. It definitely made me realize like I should read more books. I should know more things.
And then wrap them.
Yeah. As far as like the music goes though, like it's incredibly well written and well performed, and like the emotion comes through very strong. Like I got no notes, I wouldn't know where to begin to like criticize it in any way, but it's good shit. I have to be the last person in the world
I still haven't seen
Hamilton.
I haven't seen it.
Well, I'm not.
I would say that's one that suffers. That's one that could suffer from overhyping, and because it was overhyped, my expectations were actually rock bottom when I watched it. I was like, "There's no way this is that good."
Yeah,
and so I think that helped me be like, "This is pretty good."
Yeah, it is pretty good. It's pretty fucking good. Yeah.
It's also now it's like what 4 or 5 years removed from the height of it. Yeah. So once you kind of step out of it a little bit, it then kind of feels weird to get into it too. Yeah.
Well, I think it's easier when you're not like surrounded by this wave of like watch it now, and then you just watch it on your own terms. It's good. It's good. The only other thing I saw this week is I finally got to watch Beau is Afraid.
Oh my lord!
And man,
and listen to my mini cast on it. I'm sure
I haven't
immediately after.
I will this week though. I watched the movie this weekend. I will listen to mini cast.
I need to know what you think.
I do want to know. I am curious. This is not a movie that I enjoyed.
Well.
And it is a full 3-hour movie.
Well, you got to see the 4-hour cut, of course. That'll clear it all the way. You really get it? You got to see the 4-hour cut.
I would,
and then you probably should watch the 4-hour addendum.
I still haven't seen the extended cut of Midsummer, to be honest.
Me neither. I'm not actually advocating for that. If you did not like 3 hours, you're not going to like 4. And I don't know if there is a 4-hour one. I have no idea. But
I do not like this movie. It is not for Bob, man. Bob is
God, no!
Not about this. It is I broke it up into 2 sittings.
Yeah, that's fair.
Fucking hell, dude. Like I is not for Bob.
I remember when you guys first came to Seoul, I was talking about like I've been trying to watch this movie. I watched like 30 minutes of it and had to shut it off. And then finally I came back and like really sat down with it. But yeah, it's tough.
See, I had a different experience than you guys. Like I kind of like the movie. Like I like it for what it is, and what it is an anxiety-ridden nightmare. And I was down. I watched the whole thing. I was in a theater, so it's not like I really had a choice. But I was engaged the whole time. I was just like trying to figure my shit out, and I'm like, oh my god, there's no way I'm figuring this out because Ari hasn't figured this out. This is his internal monologue running wild on his ass.
I mean, we're all in the room talking to a therapist together with your boy Ari, and that's what that movie is for 3 hours. It has cool parts, like. There's moments that I vibe with.
Cool shit,
but they're brief. They are brief moments, and like aesthetically, there's a lot of cool stuff happening aesthetically. But like the story and like the vibe,
it's rough, man.
And God knows the runtime are not for your boy, man. Fucking
Y'all die tonight,
dude. Learn to edit.
Did not like it. Did not like it.
We make 2 hours of bullshit every week.
Speaking
we
of,
don't. We don't edit, but it also doesn't cost like 40 million to make or whatever. I don't know. Yeah, Bo's Afraid's out there. If you want to watch it, you can.
It's out there.
This movie
Bo's
exists.
Afraid out there somewhere.
That's what I've been watching this week. We don't have any voicemails because I think we fucking scared everybody last week.
Yeah, I think we did. We went pretty hard.
We scared everybody. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Should I replay
We
Kyle's
forget.
voicemail?
I forgot. Yeah. I was
Yeah,
like,
okay,
wait a
yeah.
second,
Let's,
wow.
let's rewind.
Here,
tape
just as a
and-
reminder, here's the voicemail we got last week.
Well,
from last.
you fuck
Yes.
around.
So, real
sometimes you
thinker.
find out.
No,
Like,
Don't be
Yeah,
afraid to
yeah.
call us, people. It's
no,
fine.
don't be. We mostly won't shit all over you.
I mean,
No.
we just won't
We'll
really.
shit on you a little
Yeah,
bit. If that's what you're into.
If that's what you're into, if that's what
Some
makes your
people
dick
pay a lot of
hard.
money for that kind of stuff, apparently.
Some people get it for free.
Shut the fuck up.
The best bump we've ever had.
Randy gets to move us along in the best way possible now.
Yeah, if you are listening and would like to call and leave a voicemail for next week's show, hit us up at 904-638-3231. Because I know you're going to ask. Next week, we're talking about Paprika, which was the winner of Randy's poll, the July poll, Paprika from 2006. We're talking about next week. Do you guys have any prompts you want to throw out for next week?
What is your relationship to anime? That's right. Anime. Tell me about your favorite anime.
Tell me about your favorite manga.
Manga. Manga.
Who is your waifu?
Wow.
My waifu. There you go. Got it. Nailed it. Wrap it up. We're done here.
Well, it doesn't get much better than that. That's the show.
That's a job well done. We criticized someone for writing today. We don't deserve Rotten Tomatoes.
My wife.
Boo.
Yeah, call and talk about drawings.
Yeah,
Sure.
sure.
Tell us what's tell like my prompt was about animated horror. Is there an animated horror film that you particularly are drawn to outside of this one or
Yeah.
even this one? I'm just curious because
Does animated horror hit as hard for you since it's kind of removed from reality in that kind of way? Is there any is there any animated horror that's hit as hard as like your scariest horror for you?
No, and the thing is, like, I don't watch. For me, I'm just answering the question. But,
Sure,
like,
sure.
For me, it's like it's not
No.
animation.
No.
Animation works best for existential horror.
Yeah.
There are movies. I almost put Grave of the Fireflies on there. So, and we've all seen that movie, I know, and that is a significant bummer of a film. But that is not horror in the way that, you know, fucking Freddy Krueger is, or even like the Babadook is, or anything like that. There's no major jump scares or anything like that. It's an existential dread, and that's the kind of dread. That's the kind of horror movie that I'm just like drawn to in general. And that plus animation, which as a craft I'm really interested in, made me want to kind of like play around in that field. So that's me.
Cool. Yeah.
Great.
Call in, tell us about animated horror, what you like, what you don't like. Did it fuck you up? Did it not? Let us know. 904-638-3231. Paprika from 2006. We're talking about it next week. Slam your eyeballs into it. Get ready for the show. Until then, you can find us on all the social media outlets. Just search Straight Chilling Podcast. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're on Threads. We're everywhere. If you want to look at our naked feet, you can do that on something somewhere probably.
You got to pay for the naked feet.
Oh yeah, if you just want to look at my shoes,
You just want to
that's
see
free,
see him in a thong. That's another issue. Okay, that's
my
free.
flip flops.
my flippy floppies.
Yep.
My feet thongs.
My old feet thongs.
Goddamn. We're on Slack. We got a Slack going. If you want to join in on the Slack, hit us up on one of those social media outlets, and I'll send you a link so you can join. We got some new additions lately the past couple of weeks. The family's growing.
We're
and
over
it's
100.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Good times. That's going to do it for this week here at Straight Chilling. Until next week, as always, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling.
Shut the fuck up.